You had the controversial and very disturbing allegations that came out last month through the lawsuit that Janelle Grant filed against WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. This, however, isn't the first time that WWE and people in it have had these type of accusations directed towards them, though. You could go all the way back to 1992 with the whole what people would refer to as the sex scandal, and then a year or 2 years after that was the steroid scandal. And there's going to be a former WWE ring boy will give an interview about Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, and others. It reads, after many, many years and amid a slew of sexual misconduct allegations against former WWE chairman Vince McMahon, a former WWE ring boy is coming forward to tell his story about the alleged abuse that went on in the company in the early 1990s. The first part of the interview, which is hosted by Lee Cole, this is the brother of the former WWE ring boy Tom Cole. He sadly took his own life in February 2021. It's going to drop very soon, 7 p.m. EST, on his Wrestling with the Devil A. Lee Cole 111 podcast. Tom had previously accused former wrestler Teddy Garvin, former WWE ring announcer Mel Phillips, and WWE Hall of Famer Pat Patterson of sexual misconduct and harassment. And with Tom Cole, his brother Lee does a really good job on his YouTube channel. I follow Lee, and I think he follows me back on Twitter also. I've tweeted him once or twice before. He's tweeted me back. I did give him a comment on one of his videos before. I just said, keep on fighting the good fight. He does really a good job exposing this stuff, but also he points out how it's not just with Vince McMahon, but also Linda is very much been involved. Vince's wife has been involved in covering stuff up. And she was very worried when it came to her wanting to run for Senate in 2012 that any bad things in the past was going to come out that could affect her run. Didn't matter in the end. They just spent hundreds of millions and she never got in. But she all of a sudden, though, Jerry McDevitt went out of his way to get in contact with Lee's brother Tom at the time and become all buddy with them. They were really worried about all this different stuff with allegations coming out. With this going back to the whole sex scandal, steroid scandal from 1982, what I thought I was going to do is, what I wanted to do was react to a video. This is very quite a infamous episode of, it was the Phil Donahue show at the time, and with the sex scandal at the time, you had Vince McMahon on the show, and then not only that, you had a wrestler, Barry Orton, that's Randy Orton's uncle. He had accused, he said when he was 19 that he had been molested. Also, you had a guy, it was a former wrestler, Tom Hankskin, that he was propositioned by Pat Patterson. And then there's another guy, Murray Hodgson, and he was started as a ring an announcer for the WWF, and just as he was starting out, Pat Patterson propositioned to him, said, "Well, you're gonna have, this is the break. You're gonna have to sleep with me." He turned it down, and then shortly thereafter, he got fired. And with this, so I'm gonna play this, and then as it's going on, I'll react to it. And with this, with all the stuff going on. And it's just quite interesting to see, as you're going through this, how it was back then. This, you could say, very much is of its time, especially in terms of how the audience reacts to this. And also just with what, in relation to how things are going, what's been coming out as of late. And it's kind of funny to think back to this time where, nothing was really, Pat Patterson was one of the guys that got accused. And then Pat Patterson resigned, but then he did come back to the WWE shortly thereafter, and it was almost kind of like an always forgotten kind of thing. And Pat Patterson is known as having a great legacy of being a great, agent, producer guy in the WWE and a great creative mind. But let's watch this, and I will react as it's going along. And so here we go. So Vince McMahon on Donahue wrestling scandal in 1992.
And Mr. McMahon, sir, you are the boss. You are what we would call in my neighborhood when we were growing up a successful big shot. This is some operation you have. over $1 billion in annual revenue. You have, throughout the 80s, taken this thing that so many people snicker at. You have filled the Pontiac Superdome with the help of Hulk Hogan and an occasional theatrical idea that included Cyndi Lauper and the marriage of kind of pop music with this through the roof. Through the roof. The PGA should pray for these kinds of revenue. And now, here you are being
seems
accused,
like an alright guy, to be
Mr.
fair,
McMahon,
Donahue.
Of presiding over an
putting him over like a
organization that looked the
motherfucker.
other way while these sex harassment charges were being, sex harassment activity was taking place. Sir, you wanted to say.
We've never looked the other way in anything. And I'm very happy to confront everyone today with whatever allegation they have. The three individuals about whom most of these allegations are hurled are no longer with the WWF. We have started an independent investigation on our own to get to the bottom of all of this, and that's why we're here today.
How credible are these so-called independent investigations,
today
really?
That my investigators do not know. I want to get to the bottom of it just like you gentlemen do.
What would you like to say to him? Anybody?
I'd like to say that it's about time because up until now you've been animately denying.
So Randy
that,
Orton's uncle.
Not only that this is taking place, but that and you're saying that you knew nothing of it, and I just find that really difficult to believe.
So fortunately for Randy
Well,
Orton, didn't hold that against him.
To believe that I knew nothing of it. Why would I condone this kind of activity and risk this alleged kind of revenue?
Because Vince, because you are the king of an empire and you have eyes and ears everywhere, and it is so common, at least the topic of conversation for 3 to 5 minutes every night in the dressing room, because a lot of the guys, they have to put up with it and they hate it because if they say anything, they're out of a job.
I don't believe that to be the case, but there may be some of it. If that's the case, then let's get to the bottom of it. I'm anxious to learn, just as you are.
Well,
I want a wholesome organization. I want an organization that everyone can be proud of. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Is it possible
like
McMahon didn't know what these guys were really doing? Patterson, Garvin,
You're always in a meeting. They took
Phillips.
my number, said you'd return my call.
I don't know.
You didn't want to talk to me, basically. I'm sure at the time you didn't know who I was, didn't know what I had to say. But, I tried to explain it to whoever I talked to, and I called. And, didn't want to...
This was when, sir?
1985.
I don't recall the telephone
Has
call.
there been any lawsuit?
Do you believe that sexual harassment exists in your
I
workplace?
don't know if the audience would laugh like that
there's a
today, right?
possibility of sexual harassment existing everywhere. And
I asked directly if it was-
and
Here's
I
the
don't
real
want
big
it
back
in
and
my
forth right here.
organization. I don't want it.
I'd like to reiterate the question. Do you believe there is sexual harassment amongst the wrestlers or employees of the World Wrestling Federation today?
There is a possibility of that. That's why I have these independent investigators to come in.
And who are these
That's
independent investigators?
Fairfax Group Limited. And I would like, to hear what you have to say, and everyone has to say. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Would you therefore believe that because of all these allegations coming forward and more corroborating evidence proving that there's no doubt sexual harassment is running rampant in the World Wrestling Federation, that you are definitely going to come public and do something about it?
Why wouldn't I? If in fact that is the case, why wouldn't I do something about it? Why would I risk what we have?
Because you haven't done anything about it until it became public, because you thought it was
Because I had
underwater.
no knowledge of it.
I made knowledge of it to you when I was fired, and you just blew it off and let me go.
Hodgson comes off,
You were not
comes off
very
well
good.
prepared.
You were not a very good announcer. You could not. It's the only reason why you were fired. You could not make the transition from radio to television. That is the only reason why you were fired.
I would like to remind you, sir, that I have a 2-year contract. 2
You
years.
also have a clause in your contract that states, and as you know, you were hired on a trial basis.
I was not hired
You
on a
also
trial
have
basis.
You do not have a contract?
Mr. McMahon, I have a 2-year deal
in
with
that
your
contract,
firm.
you will note in a clause that states very clearly, and I have it outlined for all to see here today, that you can be fired almost at whim if in fact you're not doing a good job. You did a horrible job. That's the only reason why you were fired. That's it.
Maybe I should point out, first and foremost, that might be your inability to pick good talent.
It could
You
be.
had a national
Granted.
talent search, Vince McMahon.
Could be.
You advertised in Billboard magazine and across many different media sources searching for one man that could be the new face and voice of the World Wrestling Federation. You flew me in back and forth 4 and 5 different times from Detroit, and you chose over the course of 1 year of negotiations that I would be the man for that job. I didn't sleep with your vice president. 2 weeks later, I'm fired. I also want to point out one very important fact. From your office came a letter to my landlord to verify my employment. From that letter, I must bring this point up. It says Murray Hodson has a very secure job with Titan Sports and is a positive
he's
and
stuttering with his
employee
words.
from your office.
Comes off too
Just
good.
because I don't sleep with your vice president, that qualifies to blow me out of a 2-year deal? I don't buy it.
Comes off very well what he says, but then there's that element of, I don't know, too good to be true.
Said very well, but I believe untrue. If in fact these allegations against Pat Patterson, whom you won't name, are true, why not pursue the legal course, the legal recourse? Why not pursue?
We are doing that right now.
You are. And you are aware that you waited 6 months after you were let go to bring these homosexual charges against Pat Patterson. 6 months you waited. Why?
September 14th.
If in fact you were fired on the spot, if you were fired for incompetence, all right?
Mr. McMahon character shining through.
Why didn't you say, hey, look, Vince, your vice president made a pass at me. You never told me that. No one had any knowledge. Human resources had no knowledge of that. Rene Dubose was waiting to hear your story. Why did you wait 6 months? You asked me for $160,000 today, otherwise you were coming on this program. I'm happy you're on this program.
Mr. McMahon, do not try to deflect the truth here.
Hard to know who's telling the truth,
How
really.
much money have you asked for?
I have never asked for any amount of money from you. You have tried to buy me off to shut up so I wouldn't come forward and tell of these allegations that's running through the World Wrestling Federation.
Your attorney should be consulted.
My attorney, on September of 1991, came forward to you with a letter addressed to you, telling you exactly what happened and that I was discharged wrongfully. I had a 2-year contract and that you, too, were well aware of the fact that there was a homosexual advance made against me. Don't tell me I waited 6 months. 3 weeks later, I was on your rear end.
3 months later?
6 weeks later.
No.
The only reason we waited a little longer was because you continued to try to negotiate to buy me out, and I wouldn't allow it.
The fact of the matter is, if you look into this man's past, the fact of the matter, if you look into your
I don't think we should bring up the past.
I guess not.
The
Okay,
issue at
sure.
hand
All
here,
right.
Mr. McMahon,
Okay.
is one thing and one thing only. You addressed on Larry
That's
King
not the only
Live
issue.
Friday.
not
Friday
the
on
only issue.
CNN.
Apparently,
You went on and you
he is a
said
little bit of a
that I never
sketchy
worked for the World
character, Murray
Bodybuilding
Hodgson.
Federation. I am on a video that is sold around worldwide.
True, your
my
voice
voice.
is.
So you told the country that I didn't work for the World
You
Wrestling
weren't
Federation.
employed.
You were a freelance and you were hired.
Well, of course
All
not.
right.
But you weren't
Second of
gonna
all,
make the
you
point.
said you fired me. You didn't fire me. John Filippelli not only gave me the letter, but he also fired me. John felt so bad that I was being released that he allowed me to stay at his house if I wanted to and be with his family until I could find further place to live.
And that's, my friend, speaks to all of the good deeds and good people throughout the World Wrestling Federation. We're talking about 3 people here. We're talking about 3 people, and
Audience
only
isn't
3
buying it.
people that have brought these allegations against. We're not talking about the 300. We're not talking about all of the wrestlers and things of that nature. Let's keep some balance here.
Let me make the point that this very important conflict transpires at a time that the all-time star of the wrestling game, Hulk Hogan, felt obliged to go on the Arsenio Hall show to say, I do not use steroids, only to be followed by a number of...
I don't believe you said that, Phil, if I can...
well, he said I used it, what, 3 times?
He did admit to steroid usage.
He said 3 times. And we have now several people stepping forward to say, listen, I sent Federal Express packages. They were picked up here and there. This is not to suggest that we know.
Found
the
guilty with that
absolute
steroid
answer to this.
scandal.
This is
He could have.
rather to call
I think
your
was he looking
attention
at 20 years
to the
jail
fact
time,
that
McMahon?
now some inquiry extends to Hulk Hogan. Why is that important? Because he's on just about every kind of child's toy you can buy. We're talking Hasbro here. Some of the biggest giants in the manufacturing of toys are, and the images. This is, he's not yet Mickey Mouse, but $1 billion worth of business. How much at risk is this, and how much will steroid?
He should probably have
the
been in
steroid,
wrestling, Donahue.
controversy find its way onto the front pages or the sports pages
Got a good
of
promo.
our newspapers. An establishment that, as we have said, has largely ignored any kind of probe of the wrestling game. We'll talk with journalists who have probed it in just a moment.
There we go. Wow. I mean, with this stuff, I mean, the Hodgson McMahon exchange. It was hard for me to figure out, you know, who is telling the truth and who is full of shit there. And it's like hard to tell who's being truthful. Like, both come off like they're being full of shit there. You know, Hodgson, they say that it was his former lawyer. I think he had said something like he's a lifelong con man. Apparently, he later would go on and own or manage these kind of like seedy nightclubs, I believe, in Detroit. People, if you try to look him up, research online, a few people say that they've done business with him, and they say he was one of the most, like, the rudest, disrespectful people they've ever met. I don't know. I just thought, like, Hodgson came off a bit robotic. Like, there was no ands, as, like when you're a human being, that's just how it is. You talk. It was almost like he was maybe just too well prepared. I mean, the one thing was with that, though, is that McMahon gave an actual number, a figure, that, hey, you wanted $160,000, and then Hodgson just said, oh, you tried to buy me out from coming on, to prevent me coming on the show. You know, he didn't give a number, though. So the fact maybe that McMahon gave a number was the fact that, you know, maybe it was true that actually he was just looking for the money. And that they did actually fire him because they just thought, no, this isn't working. You're not doing a good job here. But that's not to say these other things are true, and there's other stuff there with the guys, and you know, with the accusations when it comes to the you know, Garvin, Pat Patterson, and Mel Phillips, who was a former ring announcer. But this stuff, yeah, it really did have an effect on the business, because this is 1992, and I still think in 1992 this was still a year that was classed as like the golden era in wrestling. But when you're getting into like 93, 94, 95, those were the years with the shits. Those were like dark days in terms of wrestling and with the quality of the product. So it really did have an effect on the business, this stuff. And I just wonder, well, you know, all this stuff with McMahon and the allegations and this stuff, will it have an effect? Will it not just continue to have an effect on business itself, but on the quality of the product? What you see with the television, with programming, Raw, SmackDown, and the was it the PLEs they call them now, Premium Live Events, I believe, right? But also you have it's come out today, a Chicago law firm reaching out to anyone that experienced or witnessed sexual abuse, and this is in WWE stroke UFC. So the Chicago-based law firm launched a website, wwesettlements.com, with the following message: if you were sexually assaulted, made to feel uncomfortable, or witnessed sexual abuse by Vince McMahon or anyone from WWE, you may be entitled to significant compensation. States that Vince McMahon, UFC are under investigation for sexual assault and sex trafficking after former employees of the WWE have come forward with allegations of profoundly disturbing misconduct. According to a recent lawsuit, the founder and other leaders forced employees to participate in sexual acts by threatening to terminate their employment and share intimate images of them. This is the first time Vince McMahon has faced accusations. There was Rita Chatterton in 1992. She was the first female referee that came forward with allegations that she had been R-worded by Vince McMahon while traveling with him in his limousine. And then in 2022, investigators seized documents and discovered non-disclosure agreements and multi-million-dollar payouts covering sexual misconduct. So thousands of abuse victims are speaking out every year to conceive the compensation and justice they deserve. And then there's a form to fill in and call them today for a confidential and free conversation. So this could really open the floodgates. There could be a lot of people that come out with some stuff that you know, will be looking for some compensation of that, you know, what they're entitled to. So it doesn't look good at all. Again, just not another good look. It's the darker days with WWE TKO. And with this stuff, you know, with Lee Cole with his YouTube channel, I definitely check that out. I'm going to check that out. So this former WWE ring boy will do an interview on this stuff, talking about Vince McMahon, talking about Pat Patterson. So, you know, a lot of the stories are out there with stuff that's happened, but maybe there'll be some stuff there that comes out that the guy reveals that might be a bit surprising, you know, because there's maybe some stuff there that, you know, allegations that, you know, McMahon, that he very well knew what was going on when it came to what he you know, he damn well knew what Patterson and other guys like Mel Phillips and Teddy Garvin were getting up to. So that'll be an interesting watch. I'm definitely going to check that out. And you know, if you've been following this stuff, I would check that out too. Wrestling with the Devil, A. Lee Cole, 111 podcast. I'd check that out. But that's me for now. That's my video. So leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are, your take is, and all this stuff. What you thought about that whole video there with Donahue in 1992. Feel free to subscribe, give me a like, and I'm still going to be quite frequent doing these wrestling related videos. I'm going to try and stick to doing one a day on the wrestling stuff. But that's me for now, guys. Thanks a lot. Cheers. See ya.